All right. We are live now. So, Pascal, you may share the link to our audience so that those who did not get the notification can join.
I will do.
In my soul body stop to function. And may Chakaite take my life if I have.
Who is, can you mute yourself, Mr. Kwesandra, please? All right. I want to welcome everyone to this session today. Welcome everyone. I say good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us from. Today is the D-Day. We've been actually expecting this day, and this is an opportunity for us to gather again and then speak on the issues surrounding the F1 status, application for EB-1, EB-2, and I believe that a lot of people will be joining us today because most of my friends in UK, in Canada, even in this US, and then Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, they have been waiting for this program today because the issue of EB-1, EB-2, F1, all of these things is something that is of a major concern for everyone, irrespective of wherever you are. So today we are going to have on board a very wonderful attorney who's going to speak on that and address all the questions that people are going to ask. So I'm very, very hopeful that a lot of people have been waiting for this webinar session today, and you're going to enjoy, you're going to learn a lot. And like we said, this webinar is an opportunity for us to pass this information and for us to also offer to some people who would want to, after this webinar, want to take it further by applying and then working with Waypoint Immigration USA in their EB-2, EB-1, H-1B, and other visas. So, and then those that attended this webinar, like we said, are going to get 25% discount for consultation and then 5% discount for the filing fee. So, without wasting of any time, I want to welcome my co-founder, Obinna, who would be the moderator of this program. Obinna, if you're ready, you can take off from here and tell us how we are, what next and everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stanley. Hello, everyone. My name is Obinna Franklin Eze-Ibekwe, and I will be hosting this webinar today. This webinar on immigration strategies for EB-1, EB-2 is our fourth webinar for the year 2025. In February of this year, we invited a guest speaker who spoke about how students can access scholarships to go to school in the United Kingdom. Then in March, we had a guest speaker who talked about accessing different scholarship opportunities for schools in Hong Kong. And last month, for April, we invited a speaker who spoke on how students can navigate the challenges that face them after graduation in terms of securing jobs or maybe starting a new company and so forth. Today, we are going to be hosting Helen, who is an attorney based in New York, and she'll be speaking on how we can prepare compelling applications for the EB-1 and the EB-2 visas. Okay, with these two visas are pathways to green card and consequently United States citizenship. So before we proceed, I wanted to mention that after the presentation, there will be an opportunity for questions and answers. So please feel free to put your questions in the chat on YouTube. Some of you have already sent your questions using our Google Drive link, and I'll make sure to read all those questions so that our speaker can address them. So let us proceed to the speaker introduction. I'm sharing my screen. Can you see my screen? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, thank you. So this is the bio of our guest speaker for today, Helen Patlow. Helen is an attorney licensed to practice in New York and Massachusetts, specializing in immigration law. Helen's legal career commenced in Massachusetts as a real estate attorney. However, her true calling lay elsewhere. Driven to make a tangible impact on individuals' lives, Helen pivoted towards immigration law, a field that resonates deeply with her values and aspirations. Today, Helen aims to help immigrants seeking to navigate the complexities of the U.S. immigration system. Her practice covers a broad spectrum of immigration services, including, but not limited to EB-1, EB-2 National Interest Waiver NIW visas, K-1 visas for fiancés of U.S. citizens, B-1, B-2 tourist and business visas, adjustment of status procedures, and consular processing. As we can all see, our guest speaker today is eminently qualified to address this issue for today. And at this point, I want to humbly ask Helen to take the floor, please. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks so much for the introduction. Everyone can hear me okay, I hope.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm going to share my screen for the presentation today. I'm hoping everyone can see this. Okay.
Yes,
So
we
yes,
can.
hi. I'm Helen. I work at Waypoint Immigration. I live in New York, but my firm is in Boston, Massachusetts. And I am barred in both New York and Massachusetts, but immigration law is federal law, so an attorney can be admitted in any jurisdiction and still practice it because the law is a law in every state, no matter where you're at. So I specialize specifically in EB-2 and NIW applications, and I also do a lot of EB-1A extraordinary ability visas, which are both self-sponsored pathways to get a green card where you don't need a company to sponsor you for this. So since, my understanding is a lot of members of the audience are F1 students, I'm going to also just start by addressing some of the current issues that students have been having lately, especially under the Trump administration. So I'm going to move to the first slide here. So if anyone is following the news at all, whether you are in immigration or not, it seems to be definitely all over the place. So there's definitely a lot of stricter scrutiny under Trump 2.0, as I like to call it. He's resumed a lot of efforts to curb legal immigration through policy tightening, executive action, administrative barriers, USCIS, which is United States Citizen Immigration Services. The adjudicators are applying higher standards of proof across the board for pretty much everybody. They're also having regulatory rollbacks affecting STEM extensions, and parole programs are under review. So back to the news, a lot of people have probably seen how students have just been seemingly randomly getting their SEVIS terminated through their F1 student visa without any sort of due process or clear reasoning. Some of these terminations are triggered by minor compliance issues like CPT and OPT reporting errors, school administrative mistakes, while I've heard of others also being terminated for something as minor as a fishing violation. So definitely important to kind of make sure that you're maintaining all of the different rules and regulations, especially with these areas. So this also then comes with a lot of risk of international travel. So if you are, say done with your semester now, it's around May, a lot of school programs are closing for the summer. Maybe you're traveling for the summer and then you'll come back. It's definitely advised for students to avoid traveling at this point due to all of the unpredictability at the border. So students returning from a short visa abroad students returning from short visits abroad have faced refusal of entry or just visa cancellation. So it's really, really difficult for traveling now under this kind of visa, which is not what it typically has been historically in the past. So re-entry is no longer guaranteed even with a valid F1 or OPT paperwork. So it's definitely advised pretty much from almost everyone I've talked to as well to just not travel if it's just not worth the risk at this point. So kind of see how this plays out in the long term. Maybe that advice would change in the future, of course, where traveling might not be as risky at that point once this kind of levels out, I'm hoping. I have seen news that some of these terminations have been reinstated, so that is good. So maybe things are starting to turn around now, but at this point, it's still kind of too up in the air to really travel, in the time frame. And especially if you have any sort of, concerns, I would definitely reach out to an immigration attorney that can talk about your specific profile and your specific scenario to help you make that determination. But usually across the board, at this point, like I said, if it could change, in the future, hopefully it will change, that it won't be as risky. And if you are watching this, recorded several weeks or months down the line, things may have changed by the time you're watching this as well. So this is, the beginning of May 2025, May 3rd, just to kind of reiterate that. Policy analysts also have noted like a rise in backlogs and delays, which have been predicted. That's what I've been telling my clients, that backlogs are probably going to increase, delays will probably increase, and then therefore this could cause problems with students getting extended timelines for certain things like that too. And overall, like the processing time for the employment-based petitions, like we'll talk about EB-1A, EB-2, and NIW, they've all just gotten a longer processing time, longer delays, and that sort of a thing. It's really important for students to take like a forward-looking approach and having documentation, getting letters, and having things kind of align with your application. Like if you are thinking of doing an EB-1A, which is usually for people in the top of their field, or most students can tend to qualify sooner for an EB-2 NIW, it's important now as like a student to kind of start making those connections, gathering those kind of documents, things that you think will help you stand out when you are doing this kind of a thing. And then lastly, I have on here this resource that we have. It's from impactlitigation.com. And if you go to this website, it's run by, I don't know, I think it's like 4 or 5 law firms, and they're really the top immigration litigation law firms in the country. So if you find yourself in the scenario where your SEVIS has been terminated, I would definitely look into that. They're doing some sort of class action, and they are definitely the top people in this field to kind of reach out to and, see if they can specifically help you. Other things to kind of just keep track of as a student is making sure that your timing is very important. Like if you are graduating and you want to do OPT afterward, making sure that you're staying along the timelines, like you can apply for OPT 90 days before graduation and up to 60 days after graduation. If you miss these kind of deadlines, it really is not much anyone can do. So making sure that you are staying on track with how your school does it, because also every school kind of has a slightly different process as to how they may go about doing these sorts of things. So yeah, so I would definitely say as an international student, the timelines are very tricky with, once you're graduating, if you are eligible for OPT, optical op sorry, I'm like getting all tongue-tied. Optional practical training. You want to make sure that you're staying in the timeline. You want to make sure that you're reaching out to your DSO, understanding what your school's process is for all of that, and making sure that you are writing down all of these deadlines, put it on a sticky note and put it right next to your bed if you have to, anything to make sure that you stay in those time frames for sure. So that's pretty much what I wanted to just say quickly about student visa things. And I'm going to go into EB-1A next, which is the Extraordinary Ability Green Card. This is for people at the top of their field. So most of the time, students don't qualify unless you have something extraordinary that you've done during your program. But this is always good to keep in mind because these are for people that, might want to go along this line if they have, different criteria that they'll meet, which I'll talk about in a second here. But it's just good to kind of keep in mind that this does exist. So if it makes sense for your, your timeline, because this one, if you're not from China or India, you are pretty much current. So you could apply for an EB-1A and subsequently get your green card right away. There's no backlog right now. But therefore, this obviously has a very tough level to kind of prove that you are at the top of your field. So this is mainly for individuals in science, arts, education, business, or athletics. A lot of the time, my clients are in business or sciences, but athletics, arts, education, etc., is also another avenue there. Like I said before, this is a direct path to a green card. Oh, sorry. So you don't need a company to sponsor you for this. But it also is really important to say up front and at the beginning that both the EB-1A and the EB-2 NIW will not grant you legal status. So this will not let you come to America, will not give you any work authorization until you get your green card in hand. So like I said, EB-1A, there is no backlog for most people except for like China and India. EB-2 NIW, there is a backlog for everybody, no matter where you're from, which we'll talk more about once we go more specifically into the NIW. But the point is that if you wanted to be here in America sooner, while you were waiting for your green card, you would have to have some sort of underlying status, such as H-1B, which is typical, or, obviously F1 people go on OPT after they graduate. It's just 1 year unless you are a STEM individual, which you get an extension of up to 3 years of OPT. But it is really important to make sure that, you can find someone that can put you in for the H-1B lottery, just because, like I said, this will not allow you to have a status. It will not allow you to work until you actually get that green card in hand. And for NIW, the backlog is for everybody, especially those from China and especially those from India. But the EB-1A is current. So if you if you were eligible for this, you could get your green card without that kind of a delay. So the EB-1A is open from anyone across the world. You don't have to be in America to apply. You can be living anywhere. That's not what helps you qualify. It's showing that you have this exceptional ability and meet the different criteria, which will be in the next slide. But and yeah, I mean, it could be open to anybody. It doesn't matter where you are. You don't need a certain status or anything like that. So there's two main ways to qualify. I don't have the first one on here just because most people don't qualify. The first one is like for like a super amazing award, like a Nobel Peace Prize, an Oscar award, something that is like truly like beyond exceptional, which the normal person does not qualify for. So I did not include that on here. But if you have an Oscar or a Nobel Peace Prize, you can get the EB-1A. Otherwise, you have to show that you meet at least 3 of these 10 criteria that I have listed here. Most of the time, it is really important to have what our firm calls like an anchoring criteria, which would be either a critical or leading role in a distinguished organization or original contributions that are widely like accepted in your field. So those 2 are really important to kind of have as a strong foundation, because we find that if you say meet 3 other ones, it's really kind of hard to prove that you are at the top of your field. So with this particular visa, you have to show that you not only meet 3 out of these 10, but you have to have a final merits argument that shows that, you know, with everything taken into consideration, it is clear that you are a top professional in the field. So, you know, you could meet the 3, but then fail on final merits in that aspect. So by having a strong critical or leading role, or a strong I mean, you could have both, like original contributions, then that really kind of helps boost that overall final merits determination that you are, in fact, an individual at the top of their field. So, you know, just to kind of like briefly point out a couple, I don't want to spend too much more time since this is not really probably most people don't really qualify for this early in the career, but, you know, it is good to kind of know what they are. So if you do get these opportunities in your career, then you can maybe gather the proper paperwork. Like, you know, if someone emails you, don't just get the email, but, you know, get any sort of follow-up, like a thank you, an invitation, anything that shows that you were there doing what you're doing, you know, before, during, and after, any sort of paper trail for anything. Other ones that are maybe good for most people to kind of aim for is the judge of others' work. That one is more readily acceptable and easier to kind of check off the list than other ones. Authorship, you don't have to have authorship, but that is one that people tend to try to aim for, but it doesn't always work for everyone's career. It depends on what you do. It may or may not make sense. But yeah, so these are the other ones. High salary is usually you have to make 90%. You have to make more than 90% of everyone else. So you have to be in the top 10% of earners in your field. And then we use like the Bureau of Labor Statistics to find out what that number is and compare it to your base salary. Again, it's base, it's not total comp unless you somehow made like millions of dollars in total comp, but it's typically base salary. And that's just kind of like a brief overview of the criteria. You know, like I was saying before, very few students do qualify, and that's okay. I mean, that's normal. You're just a student kind of starting out and doing things. But, you know, sometimes people go back to being a student after being in the field for X amount of years, and maybe that individual would qualify. Or if you've made a very important paper that has a ton of citations, a really big impact, there are ways for students to qualify. So we're not saying like it's impossible, it's just unusual. All right, so now I'm going to switch to the NIW, which is the one that probably would make the most sense for people that are hopefully watching this right now. So this is the EB-2 NIW. Some people are familiar with EB-2 because, you know, say that they're on H-1B and their employer is going to help them go through the PERM process, which is also an EB-2 application. So they're both second preference. So if you were to look at like the visa bulletin, you would see that, you know, you would both qualify for like the priority date under EB-2. But the NIW is special in that you don't need a company to sponsor you, and you can bypass that entire PERM process, which is just increasingly a headache for a lot of people because their companies don't want to do it. They've paused their programs. You know, maybe the PERM process fails along the way. There's lots of reasons that PERM doesn't always work out. And it also takes a ton of time. So it takes a long time. Some employers won't do it until you've worked there at least a year or two. And anyway, so the NIW helps you bypass all of that. And the NIW helps follow you as an individual. And it's not tied to your specific job. So it would allow the person to switch jobs and things like that. But again, just want to be super clear. This does not give you any authorization to be in America. It does not give you any work authorization or anything until you actually get that green card. And the reason why you're able to bypass that PERM is because the entire argument is saying that the work you are doing is so important to the national interest that America will waive you having to go through the PERM process to make sure that you're capable of staying here longer and getting a green card out of it. So the work you're doing has to align with things that America has goals with, that it has a big impact, it goes beyond your employer, and things like that. So there's two ways to be eligible. The easiest way is through an advanced degree. So if you have a completed master's degree or higher, you can use that. Even if the master's degree is not from America, you would just have to get it evaluated by a service to show that it is equivalent to an American degree. So the master's degree can be earned anywhere as long as it is equivalent. Same thing with the bachelor's degree plus 5 years of progressive experience. Say you only have a bachelor's degree. Again, that could be from an American college or it could be from any college in the world, as long as it gets evaluated that it's equal to an American bachelor's of the same type. So I know that there's some bachelors out there that are only like 3-year programs, and the American bachelor's is 4-year program. So it's really important to make sure that you can get it evaluated. Sometimes they're able to take into account additional work in order to kind of show that it is equivalent, but it gets a little bit tricky. But it could be possible, so might still be able to look into that. But say you don't have a bachelor's degree that's equal to an American degree, you can still qualify if you show you have exceptional ability. So this one is not as easy to show just because there's more holes that the officer can poke through in your application. There's more arguments, it's a little bit more discretionary. If you have a master's degree, it's kind of black and white, right? Like you can show, yes, here's my diploma, here's my transcript, here's my equivalency, evaluation, and you're kind of good to go. If you're showing exceptional ability, there's just more that the officer can kind of evaluate and therefore render an opinion on. So it doesn't mean that you can't go that way and still be successful. You certainly can. It just is a little, if you have an advanced degree argument, it would always be better to go with that than the exceptional ability argument. So there's 7, and it sounds similar to EB-1A, but it's very different. The standard is much lower. Here your academic record, like say you did have that bachelor's that was only 3 years, so it's not equivalent to an American degree, but it still shows that you got a bachelor's and you still have that level of education. So you could use that in relation to like the first criteria there. Then you show 10 years of experience, has to be full-time experience. If you have a specific license or certification, like if you're a CPA, or like a license, like obviously I'm an attorney, so I have to have a license. So those sorts of things, that you're showing that you received a salary for your services, a membership in a professional association, recognition for achievements and significant contributions. So that could be, maybe you got something published, maybe you presented at a conference, maybe you got an award for something. I also have used like letters of recommendation for that. And then number 7 is just comparable evidence. So if you don't have any of those 6, or you have something that's similar, it's flexible. So it's meant to be flexible. But again, then you're kind of allowing the officer to render an opinion more than if you just did the first, advanced degree. So for instance, if you are close to getting your degree, I would just wait until you actually got that degree, and then it would be most likely easier to show that you qualify. So the entire EB-2 NIW rests upon what's called a proposed endeavor, which is just really a fancy way of saying what's your future plan that's going to be impactful to America. So the entire application rests upon how you define this. And it's really, really important to define this as strongly as you can in your application, and to also make this very future focused. So your proposed endeavor should make sense to your profile. Like, obviously, I'm an attorney. If I say my proposed endeavor is to help with, the railroad infrastructure or something like that, that doesn't have anything to do with what my specialty is. So it has to align. So it has to make sense. If you are the type of person that's maybe pivoted in their career or their focus, there could still be like an underlying theme. Like, there's a lot of people in AI, and AI can be applied in so many different industries, healthcare, finance, retail. If you can make your application about the AI technique and technologies in and of itself, and then show how its impact could be impactful in these different kind of scenarios. They're a little bit trickier to maybe write, but you have to just make sure that you're telling a common sense kind of story to everybody, that it makes sense to the officer, your progression in your career, how one thing is kind of, led to the next, and how this is very much like a story-based type of application. We're making sure to tell your story, how it makes sense that it's tied to a national interest. So again, the proposed endeavor really should be future oriented. So we should be talking about, what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? What kind of methods or techniques will you implement in order to actually accomplish those things? So it's really important to not get too tied up in talking about things you have done in this section. The way that we work the application is that this is one of the first things that we talk about. We kind of show what your proposed endeavor is, your future plans, short-term, long-term goals, etc. And then after that, we relate it to all the different prongs that we have to talk about after that, which is my next slide. But you want to make sure, again, that you're not just saying that you are, like what you have done. And this proposed endeavor really should be about the work itself that you're going to do. So, an example of a good proposed endeavor would be, I'm going to advance, AI and machine learning integration into diagnosing breast cancer or something like that. Like, if you're integrating AI and machine learning tools into helping diagnosing, well, I'm pretty much just repeating what I said, but if you're using it in that kind of a way, it makes sense, and you can kind of see how that would have an inherent impact to America, because that would obviously have like a technological impact and a healthcare. But you want to be careful in how you're phrasing it, because when they see things like, I'm going to continue doing my job at XYZ company, you're tying it to your specific job, and that's not what this is about. This goes beyond your job. You should be able to go to a different company and different organization. It's about the work itself, as to what you are doing to progress the work itself. It's not about a specific job that you have. So then once you kind of determine what your proposed endeavor is, which is a really difficult part for a lot of people, I'll definitely make note of that. Some people definitely struggle in seeing how their work has that bigger impact to it. But once you do establish your proposed endeavor, then we have to discuss it in the context of the 3 prongs of a court case called Danisar, which outlines pretty much the framework for these EB-2 NIWs. The first prong is to show that your proposed endeavor has substantial merit or national importance. The second prong is really when you do a back look at all the accomplishments you've done to show that you're capable of doing the plan that you're saying. And the third one is a balancing test to show that you're not going to harm the American labor market. And there's different things to talk about under that prong as well. So we'll start with the first one. So the first prong is both showing substantial merit and national importance. So substantial merit is pretty much just saying that the work you are doing is important, it is valuable, it's worthy of being worked on and advanced and things like that. So just showing, how your proposed endeavor has this kind of inherent merit, why is it important? So for example, if someone paints people's houses for a living, right? And that's part of what they do. there really is not a national impact. There's no substantial merit in this kind of context as to why the country as a whole would want someone to come in and paint houses. It's not inherent to innovation or impact beyond that way. So substantial merit, again, kind of going back to the original, would be that if you are in AI and machine learning and helping with diagnosing cancer, obviously that has substantial merit because you would be helping people get treatments faster, possibly getting, healed faster, having better public health outcomes and things like that. So substantial merit is just basically saying, why is it important and why should America care of the work that you are doing? Then the second half of that first prong is the national importance piece. This is showing how your endeavor has potential future impact, and it includes documentation as to how it will benefit America in the future. A lot of the time they want to see how you've already been impactful in the past, which is really not the standard, but in practice, that's what they want to know. So this should be future prospective impact. But like I said, they're going to want to see how have you been impactful in the past, therefore you're more likely to be impactful in the future. When we're talking about impact, it could be national or global implications, economic impact, societal welfare enhancement, and then we also looking to show that your endeavor aligns with different government objectives. So, for instance, going back to AI machine learning, Trump has done a ton of executive orders and different things to show that he is interested in furthering AI in this country. There are different things to show that, also interested in furthering public health outcomes in this country and showing that there's a need for, technological innovation and, different things like along with that, if you're working with like infrastructure or maybe you're working in energy, those different kinds of things kind of lend itself to different government objectives. And then we would use different actions of the government to show that, oh yes, America is also interested in this because look, they've done the cancer moonshot initiative, which is something that has happened to show that America wants to help cancer patients, or they've done, executive order, there's a bunch of them, so I can't think of any off the top of my head, but there's also, Trump has shown about the Stargate initiative and that kind of a project. And those are the things that we would show and, whatever would make sense for your application to show that America does want to also advance these same sorts of things. So talking about the second prong, which is that you are well positioned to advance your proposed endeavor, basically just saying, how would you be capable of doing what you're claiming? Going back, obviously, I'm an attorney. If I'm telling them I'm going to help diagnose breast cancer better, they're going to laugh at me and say, oh, yeah, you have absolutely no science background. You have a law degree and I have a bachelor's in history. It doesn't make sense to tell them that I'm going to help cure cancer because that has nothing at all related to my profile. So you're trying to show them basically a deep dive into things that you have accomplished, sharing with them your diplomas, your transcripts, if you have a master's thesis, if you currently have a job, what kind of projects are you working on? What are the impacts of the projects you're working on, especially anything with measurable impacts? Maybe there's some sort of report where you increased efficiency by 12% or save the company, $500,000 with something or anything along those lines is definitely the most impactful. We also would add in, maybe like a letter of like an offer letter at your current job. If you've been to a conference, if you have a professional membership, if you had any sort of like a judge role, like maybe you were a peer reviewer for something. Maybe you're involved in a professional organization and you're helping mentor other people, or you're presenting at conferences. If any of your work has grants, or if you have any publications or patent citations, there is no exact like checklist for anyone to actually have. It's a non-exhaustive list. These are just examples of what people have used. So, there is nothing that you could say that would be like, oh, if I have this, this, and that, does that show that I'm good for NIW? It's like, well, it's really about the quality of the work, the quality of the proof that we can give. And a lot of that also, depends on what kind of documents you can provide your attorney or if you're doing it on your own. Definitely has to do with quality over quantity. Anything that can really show that you are doing the work you're claiming, that you are making a difference, that you are being impactful, that's the evidence that is really powerful. And, as an attorney, this is the prong where I rely on my clients to give me that documentation. And, of course, we'll help them come up with ideas and, give them a list of things that they can maybe look for and send in and things like that. But this prong is really up to the applicant. And I would say, it's never too early to start gathering this documentation. So if you are in school, making sure that you're also maybe networking with people, because maybe later on there would be a good reference letter as well. So we always include reference letters with this application, and they really are tied a lot to this particular prong, where you would get a professor or like a supervisor to do a deep dive into like a particular project you did. The letters should not be general. They should really be specific in nature. They just don't want the letters to say like, oh yes, this person's a hard worker and they're great. They need more than that. So they want to know like, okay, well, what project did you do? What was your role on the project? What was the goal of the project? How did you help make an impact with this project? What were the results of it? So they really are specific in nature. Going to the third prong, this one is really research based. So is national importance, the first prong, and this prong are really more research based arguments. And the second prong that we just covered is really more about the documents that the applicant can provide as proof as to what they've done. So the third prong is a balancing test that shows that you are not going to harm the American workforce by bypassing this perm process, that you are, it is urgent that you are able to come in and do these things. Maybe we shouldn't wait. Like, obviously, if someone's helping out, diagnose cancer better, there's certainly a benefit in not waiting for that person because they could help save a life or, they can actually make a meaningful change. And if it doesn't have to only be in the public health space, you could help the economy by making some sort of, great sort of an impact there by adding to the economic, impact angle or creating jobs or helping America stay at the forefront of technology sort of a thing. So, the first part is showing that it's impractical for you to secure a job offer. And this is really, kind of showing how you are unique in your field, how you stand out from others, how it's not really easily articulated in a labor certification. And then number two is showing that even if there were other U.S. workers, the U.S. would still benefit from your contributions. And this is really kind of showing if you already have ties to the U.S., maybe you've already been impactful. If you're already here as a student and you're already here working for an American company, you're already making an impact directly to America itself. And again, just showing what makes you unique amongst others in your field. Maybe you have a unique combination of education and experience. Maybe you've done some sort of an accomplishment that makes you stand out. And then the third one is showing that it's urgent. Like I already said, like if you have a public health benefit or really helping America stay at the forefront of technology, things like that. So this is really like, again, a research-based kind of argument. We might have some documents to show. And then I didn't say this before, I meant to. So for the first prong of national importance and the third prong, we do like to get also a letter of recommendation from like an independent person. So this would be from someone that you have not worked with, that is in your field, and can kind of talk about maybe the problems in the field and how someone like you is uniquely qualified and can help fill the gaps and help spur the industry forward. and that sort of a thing. So it shows about your impact and how it's in the interest of the country to have you get your green card. So yeah, how can you improve your case? We always get this question a lot. You know, like I said, we already kind of covered the types of things that we look at as far as maybe what kind of documents to be gathering. You know, if you are invited to, say, for an example, you're invited to present at a conference. You know, as far as a paper trail for that one particular activity, you know, we would like to see the email where you were invited to attend that conference. Then we would like to see, do you have a PowerPoint presentation of what you actually presented at that conference? Maybe you have, you know, some sort of an agenda from that conference that shows your name listed, what your topic was. Maybe they gave you some sort of like certificate of appreciation or like a follow-up thank you email. You know, some people also add in pictures, but I feel like pictures are definitely kind of ambiguous. So these documents, you know, there could be like other documents that are stronger. But anything that kind of really helps prove that you did the things that you're claiming. And in order to even get the opportunity to present at conferences, a lot of the time we recommend like getting a professional membership. A lot of the people I work with are members of the IEEE because a lot of the clients that I have are in STEM, and the IEEE has so many different kind of like subsections and things like that. That is usually a good one to kind of get started and making sure that you're trying to see what kind of opportunities are out there. You know, the professional organizations might have more of those connections as to how you can get involved more specifically in your field and how these activities would be viable. If you are still in school or have been a recent graduate, I would definitely also maybe reach out to some professors and see if they know of any sort of, you know, activities that you can get involved with. And again, this is more along the professional side. Like if you are just involved in your like master's program or your bachelor's program, we're looking more for like the level beyond your school. So as usually as like a young professional for these types of things. So for instance, like if you were to be a mentor, right? The types of mentorship that count as like for this kind of application would be if you were through like a professional organization and they, you know, tied you into different other professionals in the field. They're not looking for you to mentor students. That's usually nothing that's really as compelling. Or if it's part of your daily job duties to be like a mentor for other people on the team and things like that, that's not really showing the level of impact that USCIS kind of has come to expect. So just kind of keeping that in mind. So if you are looking to do anything, it should be for other professionals in your field that are kind of beyond the student level. But again, you know, you don't have, there is no, I should also clarify that you don't have to be like a senior executive in order to qualify NIW. You can still be early in your career and still be able to show that impact and how that impact will be in the future and how it should matter for America. So just to kind of clarify with that there is no job level of experience that you need either. So you, like I said, you could be early in your career, you could be in the middle, or you could be senior in your career. It just depends at what point do you have enough evidence to show that you're impactful. So it really kind of depends on a case-by-case scenario with that. Some people can qualify sooner, some people have to qualify a little bit later. It just depends on your specific combination. All right, so going back to the letters of recommendation, we always get a lot of questions on this. So they're not required for this application, but they are highly suggested, and we do them for all of our clients. So for an NIW, we do about 3 to 4 letters. For an EB-1A, we do 5 or 6 letters because there's different criteria and things to kind of talk about. The letters of recommendation always kind of have a kind of formula that I use. You know, if you have a, you know, we do like a 1 or 2 work related ones where you have a current supervisor or manager talking about specific projects you've done. We'll do like an academic letter that can talk about your degree, and maybe if you had a specific project that you completed, or maybe you did a publication with a professor, something that is specific. It can't just be general. It would have to be as specific as possible. Then again, we do an independent letter from someone that you have not directly worked with, but they're in your field as an expert in the field, and kind of showing how you can help further the field and how you're unique and things like that. So, by doing that, we're showing that they have all different perspectives. They should all bring their own quality and merit to the application. We shouldn't really be repeating things. You don't want to have two work letters from one boss A and then one boss B, but they're both talking about the same project. There really is no difference in, content at that point. It's just signed by someone different. So you really want to make sure that you don't just give the officer any and all evidence that you have. You really want to be strategic as to what you're going to give them. So again, the best way to improve your case is to set yourself apart from your peers by doing publications, citations, presentations, reviews, patents, grants, projects, certifications like a continued learning, awards, professional memberships. Whatever makes sense to further your career is what you should focus on. So this should, the things that you're working on should further your career in a genuine way. Like most of the tech people I have, they're most of the time in their industry, it's not normal to really have publications. So therefore, don't focus on publications if it doesn't make sense for your profile. Focus on what helps your career genuinely. It could have a side benefit for one of these applications, but really you should be focusing on doing anything to set yourself apart in the field, to give back to the field, to help further the field, help give your specialized knowledge to other professionals in the field. And then, be impactful in your own genuine way as to what makes sense for your niche, your job, your profile, your education and things like that. And really leverage like the support around you, like the networking group that you hopefully have had, through your college. Keep in touch with, making friends even. Like I have found in my own career that the people I went to law school with, now we are many years past graduation and we all have different niches, and it's just really good to still keep in touch with people and see, what are they up to? How can you help like leverage their expertise in your own way to help further your own, advancements and stuff like that. So, someone who is a peer now in school could later on really be helpful down the line, as maybe getting you some sort of a connection that will lead to something that will help your career, and then it also might therefore help an immigration application. So I guess, the bottom line is to kind of think a little outside the box and to see what makes sense. What are you interested in doing? Where do you see you putting your own efforts? What makes sense? And then seeing how that aligns with the NIW context. Some people qualify for this and they don't even realize it because they're like, oh, I didn't know doing these things, made a difference to America in this particular kind of a way. People don't always think of their work in this kind of a context. So this is how to get in touch with me if anyone wanted to. We do on our website here at waypointimmigration.org. If you go to the top of the website, you'll see something that says free assessments. And we are doing free assessments for both EB-2 NIW and EB-1A. So if you think that you may already qualify or you're really close to qualifying and you want to kind of see what our feedback would be on your specific profile, you can certainly upload that. It's just a couple of questions and usually submit like your resume. And then one of our attorneys, we all take turns reviewing them. And, it's not like it's put through some sort of a bot. Like we literally sit down, all of the attorneys, and look at them. So, it is someone there's 4 attorneys at my firm, so we all take 1 week a month. So we all take turns. So you will get an attorney. We all do these applications day in and day out. We're all very familiar with it, and all the different kind of profiles that typically work as well. And then along with that, if anyone did want to do a consultation, we do consultations on pretty much everything. Our firm is a little unique in that we do not represent any companies. So we represent the individual. So, if you have, obviously, if you're a student and you have some questions, you can certainly, reach out and we can help you through like that timeline I discussed. If you think that maybe you would have a problem if you were to leave the country and return, we're happy to answer that. We have different categories for these different consultations on the website. So if there's one specifically on EB-1A, there's one specifically on EB-2 NIW. If you're in a situation where you've been recently laid off and you're not really sure what to do, there's different timelines and things to do with that. There's one even on there just for career planning. So if you are early on and you're not really sure where to kind of focus your efforts, what makes sense, we can kind of help guide you as to different avenues. Like we don't personally process like H-1B applications because those are company sponsored type of things, and we don't do perm typically either, but we can help you because a lot of the time I also have heard that people that go through their company's attorney it doesn't always work out great because your company's attorney has your company's interest first, always. They do not have your interests first, and they're also not as familiar with NIWs or different other pathways. And if it doesn't make sense for the company to do something for you, they may just, not advise you incorrectly, but they may not know about all these other different things. So at Waypoint, we're very much about helping the individual person, not the company. And, we also do like family immigration and things like that too. So if anyone, needed like a K-1 fiance visa or was married to a US citizen and things like that, we do that too. But my 95% of what I do is EB-2 NIWs and EB-1As. So that very much is there. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm posting daily like tips and tricks on how to improve NIWs. More specifically, my boss, Amber Davis, she's the one that owns the firm. She's posting all the time about EB-1As. Alex Law, she's also on our firm. She's posting all the time about student visa things and other kind of aspects with layoffs and stuff like that. And then we have Junaid, who's also on our team, and he's just starting to kind of post about certain things about EB-1As or NIWs. So, we're all kind of good resources to learn things from along the way, always trying to kind of help share the knowledge and tips and tricks because these things are so complicated and tricky and like complex that it's really kind of hard to navigate on your own. So I'm always trying to at least spread knowledge on the basis. There's a lot of misconceptions where people say, oh, well, I don't have publications, therefore I don't qualify. Like, no, it's not about publications. You could still qualify. Or, they say, oh, I'm going to get this and I'm going to get my EAD and I'm going to work right away. It's like, no, it doesn't work like that either. So with both EB-1A and EB-2 NIW, it's an I-140 application. So you have to go through that first, and then you'd wait for your priority date to become current, and then you can either go through consular processing or an adjustment of status. So it is like a 2-part process there, and it's not until you get to that green card in hand where you can also apply for like advanced parole, where you can travel back and forth, or an EAD if you're in America, you adjust your status, then you can just kind of be free to do things on that point. But there's a lot of misconceptions with these sorts of things that I always find. So I'm always trying to kind of clarify. Oh, and I almost forgot the most important part. So if you do sign up for a consultation, there is a promo code that we have set up, the EDU Africa. So if you type that in, you should get $50 off. It's normally $198, so it would be $148 for a consultation with me or any of the other attorneys that are at our firm. We would all be happy to help anybody.
Thank you very much, Helen, for this informative and insightful webinar. I
Yeah,
believe
sure.
that, I believe that our audience are more informed about the EB-1, EB-2 process. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And
Absolutely.
before we go to the question and answer session, I want to remind everyone that this webinar is being brought to you by Education African Scholars Global Connect. We are a nonprofit that has been registered in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And what we do is to mentor and also provide resources to young Africans who are interested in accessing top quality education abroad. So far, many of our mentees have successfully gained admission with full funding to begin their master's or PhD in top institutions around the globe, including Yale University in the United States, University of Georgia, and so on and so forth. So please, if you want to join us, be sure to join our WhatsApp community and also connect with us on our various social media platforms. We have many um, resources to help international students navigate the process of securing admission abroad. So be sure to follow us so that you'll be updated when those offers are published. So like we mentioned, we received some questions from many of our audience before the webinar, and I am going to start reading those questions out. And if you have anyone and you are joining us via via YouTube, please be sure to put your questions in the chat, and someone is going to get the questions to me, and I'll read the questions. And also, don't forget to take advantage of the discounted prices that our nonprofit is bringing to you via our partnership with Waypoint. That is going to go a long way in reducing the cost of your attorney services. So, Helen, please, the first question from Timmy Lehin at Deboyega. He's asking, does USCIS disqualify a non-thesis master's degree, especially for someone that wants to make a strong case for ability to conduct research on drug discovery?
So I'm assuming this is in the context of an EB-2 where you would qualify under advanced degree. So it just has to
Yes.
be a master's degree that's equivalent to an American degree. It doesn't matter if it's thesis or non-thesis, as far as that is concerned. You know, if it's done in an American institution, then obviously you're good to go. If it is done somewhere else in the world, you would just have to get an evaluation. So there's a bunch of them that do that. Like there's West and there's I think Carnegie, and those are just the two that are at the top of my mind. But you know, you should be able to reach out to one of these organizations to get an equivalency, and then you would be good.
Okay, thank you for that answer. The second question from the same individual, he's asking, does your journal publication all have to be in the same field?
So it's a little bit different. So for EB-1A, if you're claiming the authorship criterion, you know, we're saying that you're the top of the field of a specific niche. So you have to define your field of expertise. So, you know, you could use authorship in any, it has to be like in a scholarly article, you know, scholarly journal, has to be like usually peer reviewed, you know, have to kind of show how you were able to kind of meet the level of the journal in order to qualify. And then for EB-2 and NIW, it's a little bit different. So, you know, sometimes people have publications early in their career and then they shift gears and then they're doing something completely different now, and therefore their proposed endeavor is something that's completely different. So if that publication does not support the argument that it helps you do whatever your proposed endeavor is, it might make sense to not mention it in the application. But if there is some sort of underlying foundation, like maybe you were using the same, you know, technique, or it was had some sort of foundational aspect of your career, there could be an argument there to use it as, you know, if it does help at all. But typically, if it's not aligned with your proposed endeavor, it could be used, but it just may be a weaker form of evidence.
Okay. We have another question from an individual named Adedamola. So he's asking how he can avoid getting an RFE for his EB-1 petition.
That's a really general question. So that's really kind of hard to say. You want to make sure that you are understanding all that is required under the EB-1A. You could look into the USCIS policy manual where they kind of describe what the different criteria is and how you should be able to qualify for that criteria. Again, follow Amber even more specifically than me, Amber Davis. She's always posting things on EB-1A. She goes live every week on a different topic on EB-1A. I go live every week on a different topic on EB-2 and NIW. So, together we're kind of complement each other in that way. So I would definitely kind of reach out to see the different tips and tricks. Obviously, if you wanted to do like a free assessment, we would be happy to kind of tell you what we think at the time. But definitely making sure that you have strong evidence to back up the different claims is the most you could possibly do.
Okay, thank you so much. So just a follow-up question from me personally. So amongst the three prongs for, let's say, EB-1, EB-2, which one do you think applicants get the most RFE for, based on your experience?
Well, for NIW is absolutely prong one.
Okay.
That is very difficult to kind of show your impact beyond your employer for a lot of people. There's a lot of gray area that the officers are able to kind of utilize in adjudicating these things. A lot of the RFEs I see, they are not using the right level of legal analysis. Like, they're saying that you have to have a certain level of publications or citations. There is no requirement for either one of those. Sometimes they're saying, oh, you have to have an original contribution. No, that is not an NIW. That's an EB-1A qualification. So it's really a lot of these RFEs are also a lot of legal analysis to push back and say, you're not using the proper legal standard. This is what the legal standard is, and this is how the applicant satisfies the legal standard you should be using. So definitely prong one is a little bit trickier to prove. Yeah, I mean, I have seen RFEs that they did accept prong one and they questioned prong two. And I've seen RFEs where they accept prong two, but then they question prong one. And they almost always question prong three. So if you don't get prong one and prong two, they automatically question then prong three. I have never seen an RFE though, where they only question prong three, where they've given you prong one and prong two and you fail at prong three. So that would be highly unusual, I would say. I've worked on, I don't even know how many cases at this point, like hundreds, and I have not seen an RFE that's popped up only on prong three. So that would be a little strange. But a lot of the time is pushing back that they're not using the evidence in the way that they should be using it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. And I believe that our audience are taking note of these insights you are sharing. This insight can only come from an attorney with experience like you, and we really appreciate you sharing all of this information with us. So Adeda Mola has a second question. He's asking if Nigerian online publications are still acceptable for EB-1 petitions.
Yeah, so for EB-1A to qualify for like authorship, you have to have something that is in a scholarly journal or a major media publication. So, most of the time, from the sounds of it, it sounds like it's some sort of scholarly journal where you would have to show that it had peer review and it went through some sort of criteria processing, and what was the level of review that particular organization had. So making sure to include that. You don't just submit your publication. You would submit the evidence of where it was publicated, where it was published, and what criteria they use in order to do that. Sometimes it makes sense to include the impact factor, but that may or may not have as much weight. It's really more about the criteria that your publication had to pass to be published.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We have another question from Kennedy Nwogo. He's asking a very generic question. So he said, how do I get started with NIW?
So the first thing I would say is, look at the USCIS policy manual. It's chapter 5 for national interest waiver. See what the regulations say. Have like some sort of an educational understanding of what they're looking for. So I guess to get started, I would say educate yourself as to what the NIW is. Obviously, if this person is here today, they're already doing that by, getting some information from me. And then I always tell people to submit their profile for an assessment, in which we'll reply back and, also maybe suggest like a consultation where we can look at the individual and have like a conversation about it, because it's not always easily understood through like just an email. A lot of it is kind of needing of a conversation, I would say. But definitely getting like an understanding as to what this visa is all about, what they're looking for. So it sounds like you're doing the right things by, getting these kind of resources.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Nchedochukwu Anastasia Onyewu. This fellow is asking about the basic information he or she needs to know about a student visa.
So for student visas, obviously that's F1. You would get that through the different colleges. Not all colleges accept student visas. So you would have to, make sure obviously you're getting into a program that does allow international students. Make sure that you are in contact with the DSO, which is the designated school official. They're like the designated person that helps handle all these different nuances and such like that. Get into a program. And then there are 2 different options: CPT, which is curricular practical training, which you can do during your program, which would allow you to work and go to school. Or you can do OPT, which is optional practical training after graduation. You can't usually do both. So if you do CPT, then you may use all the time. There's different nuances. It's kind of complicated with like duration of time and things like that. And there's like definitely some nuances there, but you may then just be able to do OPT. If you're a non-STEM degree, you get 1 year of OPT time. If you are a STEM degree, then after 1 year, you can get a 2-year extension. So you would get a total of 3 years after graduation to work in America. Obviously, has to be in a job that's tied to your degree and things like that. And there's different, qualifications. And I would definitely make a suggestion of having a consultation under career planning on our website, if that was something that you wanted to kind of explore the different nuances, the different timelines. There's also some programs allow you to do a day 1 CPT, which means from the first day of your program, you're able to work and get your degree, but they are definitely more scrutinized and heavily kind of looked at. And they're going to probably be even more looked at now, because the idea is that you want to make sure that the person is genuinely wanting to study and the side benefit is work, and that the person's not just going for an F1 CPT as a workaround to have that work authorization. So they want to make sure that it's genuine, that you do want to kind of do these things. So that's kind of the idea behind that. And, also an F1 student visa is a non-immigrant intent, meaning that it's temporary. You're supposed to intend to only be here throughout the duration of your program and not stay here permanently. So there's different things to kind of like take into consideration. And then especially with the different scrutiny of people coming and going with student visas now. But yeah, that's just, I guess, a little overview.
Thank you. Thank you. The next question is from Toby Oladipupo Sobande. And he wants to know how he can migrate to the US using his professional work experience, and also the best visa for him to explore. So he wants to know if he can secure a job, a US job, while residing in Nigeria.
Yeah, so if you can find an H-1B sponsored employer, H-1B is a dual intent visa, and that's up to 6 years of time to be on that visa. So that is sponsored by a company for you to come and work on that application. It is lottery based because there's so many people around the world that want it. It's done every March. So it's over for this year, but it would be happening again next year. And then that person, if they were selected for the lottery, their company would have to go put through the petition for them, and then they would start as early as October, which is the start of the fiscal year. There are some employers that are H-1B cap exempt, meaning that they don't have to go through the lottery. And those are typically like universities, organizations, people that are like doing research, so they don't have to go through the cap process. So H-1B is possible, but if you don't get that lottery that year, then you're kind of out of luck. So there could be other things to explore, like an L1, like if you're in a company, a foreign company, and you're meet certain criteria, you can then be transferred to an American company. So that's like a transfer type of a thing. Obviously, you can apply for an EB-2 NIW or an EB-1A from anywhere across the world. EB-1A, those from Africa, there is no backlog. For EB-2 NIW, it's about 3 to 5 years for those from Africa. The main backlog is pretty much for people from India. They have the absolute worst backlog. There is still a backlog from China as well, but all the countries in Africa they're considered rest of world, and they have like a 3 to 5 years for that. So there could be other options as well, depending upon exactly what country this person is from. Like there's a specific type of visa for those from Australia that is similar to the H-1B, but it's not an H-1B. So there's different kind of things like that too that could be possible. But there also could be like an investment visa if you invest into an American an American company. There's also an O1 visa, which is similar to EB-1A, but that does not result in a green card. It's temporary, but you can keep renewing that, but it is tied to your specific job. So that company would have to sponsor your O1 visa. That shows that you're like in the top of your field. So there could be a couple different options, and it, definitely would suggest making a career planning consultation to see which ones would align with this particular person.
Thank you. Thank you for all of these very insightful answers. I've been in the US for more than 6 years, and some of the information I'm getting from you are things I never knew about. So really, I really appreciate you coming to speak to us and educate us. And I know that our audience are also very, very appreciative of your knowledge that you are sharing with us. Thank you so much.
Of course.
So the next question is from Ebenezer Okudo. So the first question from him is there hope that funding would be restored to most US graduate school in the coming year?
Sorry, can you, funding will be restored to US? Well,
US graduate
I guess
schools.
as far as like some of the research grants are kind of up in the air, I guess, is that what they're talking about?
Yes.
Well, I don't really know how to answer that. I wish that I could. I know that from what I've heard from people that, just even clients that their work is grant funded, they've had to like reapply, and things are kind of in the middle of whether or not they're going to be reinstated. Some people have been, granted their funds back and stuff like that. I haven't heard of anything recent on that other than when it first happened. And I just know that people have had to reapply to get their grant funding, and some people have received it and other people are still like in the middle of hearing. I guess it's pending. So I'm not really sure how to answer that beyond that, unfortunately.
Thank you. Thank you. And the next question from Ebenezer, which he labeled unrelated, he's asking, and I can take this question, it's completely fine. He's asking between GRE and TOEFL, which is a standardized test to assess a student's English language proficiency. So he's asking between these two exams, the GRE and TOEFL, which would you recommend a prospective applicant to sit for?
That I have no idea.
Its intending course of study is developmental psychology and education. So what I would say to him is, it just depends on the specific requirements of the program you are wanting to apply to. So you have to check. Schools typically mention the requirements they need from students. So if the school you want to go to has that as a requirement, then you have to take the exam. But if they do not have that, you don't need to take them. So TOEFL, many schools in the US typically don't require that anymore for Nigerian applicants because Nigeria is an English-speaking country. So most schools will not require that. For the GRE, you have to ask your specific program. And this is also how you know what to submit to any department. They all have their requirements, so you have to follow whatever direction they give to you. So Stanley, you want to ask a question, please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you, Ovina, then thank you, Helen, so much. It has been a very insightful session on this while, and I have really, really, really learned a lot. So I my question goes around. I was I was wondering, with the current situation or the current administration, um, would you, as an attorney, would you advise someone who want to apply for EB-2 NIW to focus his his proposed interest or his proposed endeavor to be around um, putting up a refugee camp? I mean, putting up kind of helping refugees, those who came in through, let's say, through different ways into the US, trying to reinstate them into the system and try to kind of organize a program that will be able to reinstate them into the system, and then they can contribute to the growth of the United States. So do you think such a topic, with the current administration, you think such a topic can fly?
That's really interesting. I actually have a client that we have now that's working with like implementing AI with refugee population, like specifically with them in mind. Like, so it's like an interesting kind of cross section. It's kind of really difficult to show how the current administration is interested in helping refugees. Like, I'm not sure what kind of evidence there really is with that. What the client we're working with is more relying on her technical skills and how the technical skills will help with efficiency and like being able to make data-driven decisions on refugees and things like that. So it's similar but different. I would say, if you're working on some sort of a program to help refugees, it's just really difficult to find the evidence right now that that is a priority of the government with everything that's happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's
So yeah, that would be that's really, I would say that would be really difficult to prove.
yeah, okay. So yeah, this very question is very important because just like you said, you and I know what's happening in the US currently. Um, so I was wondering how one can actually prove that.
Yeah. Like I said, the client that I'm working with is we're relying a lot on the technological aspect of what she does, um, than necessarily the humanitarian effect of what she does, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. So okay, in that case, maybe I will follow you up to know if her case actually got approved eventually. So
Yeah, she got an RFE that we're working on right now. Um,
okay.
so
So
yeah.
which means after then you will have to refile for her, right?
Well, let's hopefully the RFE will get approved. That's step number one. That's what we're hoping for. But yeah. I mean,
Right. So
we can see what she wants to do after that. She's not currently in the country, so
okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
yeah,
I'll follow
sure.
up on that. I'll follow you up on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, first of all, I'm not an attorney, and this is not a legal advice, but based on the little knowledge I have about NIW, I would say that whatever your proposed endeavor is, you should make sure that you have evidence to show that you can embark on this endeavor or you are already embarking on it. So if you say you want to do something, you should be able to show that you have the capacity to do it, so to
Yeah.
say. Yeah. So I think that should help people to develop a more practical and a compelling proposed endeavor for the NIW or EB-1. So does
Absolutely.
another person have another question? Stanley, do you have another question?
No, I don't think I have. I was trying to see if we have any of our. Let me check whether anybody sent me any direct message. Okay, I was trying to check if there is anybody that have any like can bring the person in to ask a live question, but I think we've exhausted most of the questions we have. So
Yeah. So at this point, I want to, in a very special way, thank our guest speaker, Helen, who has done a phenomenal job of dissecting what it means to apply for EB-1 and EB-2. I strongly believe that our audience have really benefited and they will be leaving this webinar with a richer information about the EB-1, EB-2 process. And I also believe that this webinar is going to foster a relationship between Education African Scholars Global Connect and Waypoint Immigration. We hope that many of our mentees would consult your office for immigration services. And I also want to thank our audience for attending and for asking very thought-provoking questions. And yeah, at this point, I want to turn it over to Stanley for the final announcement. And yeah, from me, it's goodbye. Thank you guys so much.
yeah, thank you so much, Obinna. Thank you for always doing well in anchoring most of these programs. It's not easy. If you guys know what we are putting in, the kind of effort we always put in to come live to hold programs like this, you know that we are really, really, really trying. And then we hope that God will pay us for what we are doing. And also, I want to thank Helen in a special way. Um, you have really given us lots of insights, and I'm very happy, and I believe everyone is very happy to have you today in our program. And uh, as you have appeared to us today, I am very sure that a lot of our colleagues or a lot of our mentees are going to be connecting with you on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. So please, uh, anytime they come, please kindly help them to answer their questions because they might want to be connecting with you on LinkedIn and one of the reasons we invite speakers here is to kind of connect, just like our organization name implies, African Connect, to connect our speakers who have already, had one step ahead of us or of others to those who are still down there. So like kind of connecting them so that there will be easy communication and then they will be able to, because I know that a lot of the speakers we invite here, most of them are very, very busy people and they have a lot of things that they do. They have a lot of people that contact them on social media. So what we normally do at EduAfrica is anybody that is a mentee of EduAfrica and has attended our program, we really know that this person actually want to get some kind of resources from us. And in most cases, when we invite our speakers here, after they speak, they go. And then we try to tell them, please, those our mentees that have attended would want to kind of follow up with you because we don't have all the time here to finish everything. So they want to follow up. So please, if they get to you, kindly give them audience because at least they have seen you on a virtual program with EduAfrica. So that's part of what we are doing at EduAfrica, connecting speakers, connecting scholars with those who have made it, with those who are still pursuing to make it, so that there could be easy communication in that regard. So thank you so much for coming to speak. And then at this time, I would want to use this opportunity to also thank our audience and our mentees for their struggle. One thing I always tell you guys is that your struggle, God is seeing it. I always advise people that what you need to do in your life is do your best and leave the rest to God. We are just an organization trying to assist. What we do is we provide the resources for you. We provide the financial help for you, the much we can. We cannot give everybody, but you know that we are doing some scholarship programs. Last year we did scholarship programs, and this year we're going to do another scholarship program. And we can only do the much we can, but we now ask you to keep on struggling. We do help, and we ask God to help assist us in whatever we are doing. And like I said, we are offering a lot of scholarship programs. And this year, we want to offer one of the biggest scholarships in EduAfrica so far. So this year we are looking at, we are going to very soon, probably by next week, we are going to publish our application for international essay competition coming up. So this is an opportunity for scholars from different countries, from Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana, UK, any country you want to apply, you can apply from there. So if you have the intention of starting a new program in the United States or any other country, Canada, UK, you want to start any new program, master's and PhD, and you need help from EduAfrica, we want to offer you, at least each person is going to get $250 to cover your application fee, we're going to give you one-on-one mentorship. We're going to also provide you GRE materials so that for those of you that want to write GRE and GMAT. And then we also assist you in tutorials, because we have some of our scholars who have gone through the GRE. At least Obinna here, he has written GRE before, so he can actually assist in that area. He can actually source for materials. So we have our scholars and most of our board members who have written GRE before, who are willing and ready to assist our winners. So they are going to gain a lot of things. So next week, we're going to push out that application. And we are looking forward to have our portal open for applications on 1st June. And it's going to last from 1st June to 30th of June. So it's going to be like 1 month. So you have a whole month. We are publishing like 2 topics that people will write on. So you choose one of any of those 2 topics and write and submit on our website. So our selection committee will take the time between July and August to evaluate all the applications. And we are going to announce the winners by maybe early August. Then from there, because we are looking at mentoring people from August, September, October. So by November, December, because a lot of schools in US and most of the countries like Canada and other countries, their application for the next academic year usually starts around August, September, October, November. So within that period, you have that window period to apply. So what we want to do is to provide a one-on-one mentorship for those that will be winning this scholarship that we want to publish. So if you become one of our winners, you will gain one-on-one mentorship. We will help you, because most of us here, Obinna, myself, most of our board members, they have all won scholarships to be in different countries that they are. So they have the skills, they have the knowledge, they have the directions to help you apply and win those scholarships and travel from wherever country you are to the United States or any country you are applying to. So these are the benefits that our winners are going to get. And like I said, each person will also get up to $250 that will cover your application fee, because We have seen that most schools in the US and other countries charge application fees between $50, $75, $100, $80, depending on the amount. So if we offer you $250, we believe that $250 should be able to cover at least two to three schools, or if not more than that. So, and you know that why we want to offer you application of up to $250 is for you to have options. You don't just apply to one school. For instance, myself, when I was looking for scholarships, I applied to about 30 schools. And recently I got a full funded PhD. I just finished my master's last year, and I applied for a full funded for a PhD. And in the application period, I applied to about 11 schools between September last year to January this year. I submitted about 11 applications for PhD, and I got 2 fully funded in 2 schools. So why we are saying this is this: you have to apply to some. You have to, like, for instance, I applied to about 11, and I got only 2, and I got rejected in about 8, and 1 is still pending up till now. Now, if you look at it, I submitted 11 applications and 8 rejected me. I got 2 fully funded scholarships, and then 1 is still pending, which means that if you apply for 1, the chances of getting admitted is very, very, very slim. So we are looking forward to having you apply to at least 3 to 4 schools, and we will mentor you to submit a strong application that will bring you to the United States or any country you want to apply to. So prepare for this. It's going to be a very, very competitive, because we want to get the best. We want to get the best people that will apply. So prepare yourselves as we move, prepare for this application period. And thank you all. Thank everyone. And at the same time, finally, I want to also advise us to follow our social media platforms. We are looking forward to having all of you subscribe to our YouTube channel and other, because we are going to be posting a lot of information to our social media platforms. And if you don't follow us, you will not get those information. Apart from this, we are actually looking for a way to build our social media platforms, most especially our YouTube channel. Because what we are doing here is we are looking forward to build these channels and make it more substantial and productive for both of us. So we are actually asking you to subscribe, share our YouTube channel, help people make it to be viable, so that people will subscribe, and at some point it becomes important and it gets us some money that we will use to assist you guys. By God's grace, we are looking forward to at some point monetize, because this is an organization. This is a non-profit organization. We don't ask you, we don't charge you for money for anything. What we need you is for you to just subscribe, help us build our social media. If we get something from the social media, like for instance, now this scholarship that we are doing now, these are donations from people. If we have a social media that is working, we make money there, we give it back to you guys. By God's grace, myself and my colleagues and my team members are all kind of doing well. By God's grace, we are working, we are all making money. So it's not like we are here to make money from you. We are only asking you to join and build this community, so that the community will be helpful for you and I. So we ask you, we are only begging, subscribe and build this, our social media platform, so that at some point we will use what we are getting there to offer scholarships. Thank you all. And thank you, Obinna. Thank you, Helen, for being part of this program today. And please, Helen, please remain on the call while I go off from the YouTube live.
Thank you all for having me.
Yeah. We look forward to having you next time. Okay.